Hello and welcome back to A Bird's Eye View. I'm Lois Perry, your straight-talking host who gets down to the nitty-gritty of everything and likes to keep an eye on things from above and swoop straight into the heart of the big stories. We're on episode 4 or maybe 5, either way, we're flying now. And this week I have two brilliant guests. Father Calvin Robinson, priest, broadcaster and fearless defender of faith, and my good friend and supporter, Viscount Lord Monckton, who has never ever been afraid to ruffle a few feathers in politics or science. We'll be taking a look at Labour's reshuffle after Angela Rayner's it's not that shocking, resignation. Can Starmer keep his flock together? We'll ask whether Christianity can save Britain from its nosedive. And then the big one, is climate catastrophism, two gin and tonics, I can't say, finally dead, or are the doom mongers still there, standing there? They walk amongst us, folks, insisting it's not just dead, it's just resting, it's pining for the Fords. And if you get that, you're either the same age as my dad or my boyfriends. So buckle up, grab a drink and enjoy the view, because this is A Bird's Eye View. This week, I'd just like to do a little disclaimer. The opinions, interpretations and creative content expressed in this programme do not necessarily reflect the ideology or philosophy of Quews News. While we uphold freedom of expression and opinion, we remain committed to an ethical and moral code of decency operating within the ambit of law. We respect all human beings, faiths, religions, castes, colours and creeds, and provide no space for bigotry, racism or fanatic views. Although if there is anyone that does anything really, really naughty, I will throw them off live on air and it will make absolutely fantastic television. So, Lord Monckton, how are you?
Well, Lois, it's always a pleasure to be in your radiant, effulgent presence.
You do give the best compliments. You really do. I mean, I need a thesaurus, but thank you so much. So we had a good time last week. You and I were at a certain conference. We'll come back to it later on, but it was good, wasn't it? The Nige conference, or the Reform conference, as it's otherwise known.
It was outstanding, and you were outstanding. I'm going to reveal a secret here, which is that Lois, before doing her piece at the fringe event that we were at, which is by the Heartland Institute, of which Lois is the director, not only for Britain, but for the whole of Europe. She had had 3 glasses of champagne with Nigel Farage in the high-ranking donors lounge before coming onto the show. And if you can get online her talk on it, you'll find that she was on the most cracking form. It was really astonishing. She did really well. And we had getting on for 500 people.
We
at
did.
This Fringe
it
event,
was one of the most well-attended events at Fringe. And of course, Quews TV co-sponsored. So that was amazing.
So it was very successful and people were wildly enthusiastic. And let's just say that one of the biggest cheers of the day came when one of the panel suggested that the unspeakable BBC should be abolished outright.
And who was that? Who was that said that? I can't remember.
I unfortunately am now of an age where I can't really remember anything.
Yeah, well, it was you. It was you. And you're right, you did get the biggest chair. But I tell you someone who has not got the biggest chair, that is Angela Rayner. Although maybe people have cheered for the actual resignation. So this week, it's come out that she breached ministerial code over her tax arrangements. She said she was careless, and then she tried to blame her lawyers, who then distanced themselves from the comment. I mean, look, people do make mistakes, but the issue with her is that she hasn't allowed anyone else to make mistakes, has she? Anybody else has been hung, drawn and quartered. And also for a lefty working class girl to have 3 homes. It's a little. They used to call Richard Tice 2 votes Tice. Well, this is 3 homes Rayner. We'll have to come up with a suitable description for her. It just doesn't look good, especially using her disabled child's compensation to buy it's just a bit dodgy, isn't it?
The whole thing is rank. There's no doubt about it. And I think the sadness is that the trouble with any totalitarian, and of course we are now governed by a totalitarian party, a party which will put the party line before the objective truth.
Okay.
That's how one defines totalitarian. So it's a party which wants to have absolute control over everything and everyone.
Ideology above humans.
Above truth.
Above truth.
You see, that's the problem. The objective truth is what we should be pursuing. There was a wonderful Dominican friar called, now what was his name? I will remember in due course, in the 1920s. And he said, truth alone is worthy of our entire devotion. And the trouble with any totalitarian, absolutist party is that they will take whatever their party line is, they will insist on that. And if in any respect that party line does not accord with the truth, they will discard the truth every time. And that's what happened to Angela Rayner.
And that's the Orwell quote, isn't it? You will refuse to believe what you see with your own eyes. Or that's a paraphrase from 1984.
I mean, the big problem with Angela Rayner on this story was that she said that she was doing exactly what her lawyers had told her. And only one newspaper, and that was the Daily Telegraph, actually bothered to check with her lawyers to find out what they had actually told her. And her lawyers said, we told her we don't give tax advice, and that because this is a complicated area of tax law, you must go and get separate advice, because if you don't, you could get into trouble. She didn't get any separate tax advice from a properly qualified tax lawyer.
Okay.
She then pretended that she had got proper advice, and once the Telegraph had revealed the truth, which I have just described, that was the end of Angela Rayner, because the one thing you still can't do, even if you're in a totalitarian party, while we still have something like democracy left in this country, and of course the left are trying to take away democracy, but it still kind of exists, then if you tell a porcupine as big as the one that she told, that is, even today, fatal to your political career. And that essentially is the end of Angela Rayner.
Also, she's not the sharpest pencil in the pencil case. I mean, you're telling a fib that can be so easily disputed.
Well, she reasoned that no news medium would actually bother to check. And she was very nearly correct in that. It was only because Chris Evans, who is the editor of the Daily Telegraph, actually likes to check stuff, he's famous for it, that they checked. And it was they who found out that she was simply making stuff up in her public statements on this. And it was that, rather than the fact that she'd underpaid 40
You're
grand
right, it was the lying
in stamp duty that really got her.
Very quickly, because we're going to be joining Father Calvin in the United States shortly. Let's look at the repercussions for this in terms of the reshuffle, internal tensions and stuff like that. My understanding is that they wanted to use this as an opportunity to get rid of Red Ed Miliband, that Starmer can see with the pressure that's been put on him by the Reform Party that the net zero stuff is so unpopular now. And that's a lot to do with you and a little bit to do with me. So we should be quite proud of ourselves.
I think you in particular, with Car 26, you started one of the great pressure groups. Now you're in charge of Heartland. And this, of course, is perhaps the most powerful of all the properly sceptical.
Well, Red Ed wouldn't go. He wouldn't go, apparently.
He wouldn't go. And because he is a hero of the left, because the left are completely besotted with this climate nonsense. And the question is, why are they besotted with it?
Yeah, how can he be a hero of the left? Not that there's anything wrong with inherited wealth whatsoever, but there's nothing working class about him. Mind you, there's nothing working class about most of the left. That's the problem.
The left, if you go back to Lenin and Stalin, they had complete contempt for the working class. They called them the mere proletariat.
Right.
That phrase was used both by Lenin and the mere proletariat. And they had complete contempt for them. And so if you are working class and you think that voting for the communists, who call themselves socialists, the Labour Party, is going to benefit you, well, It isn't.
No.
All that they are doing, and they're doing it, I fear, deliberately, is collapsing the economy. And the reason why Red Ed is so important to this is that he knows perfectly well that he is collapsing the economy. He's driving out businesses right across Britain. Do you know, we can't even make virgin steel in this country anymore because you can't use coking coal because coking coal, CO2, global warming, whoa.
No, global warming is only if it's in the UK. It's not if it's in China. CO2 emissions only count when it's us.
That is the other huge problem, because if Britain were actually to go in a straight line from our current sins of emission, which meant something quite other when I was a lad, to net zero by 2050, which is the UN's target date in a straight line, the temperature worldwide, if we went to net zero,
come on, Lord Monckton, tell the viewers what would it be? What would be the reduction in temperature?
It would be 1,000th of a Celsius degree at a cost of $15.2 trillion. The worst value for money in human history.
It is the worst
it's
value for money.
It's entirely pointless. We cannot, even the whole world, if it went to net zero, would make only 0.1 Celsius degree. And we know that the communist-led and communist-inspired giants of the East, India and Pakistan, Russia and China, are not going to go to net zero.
But also, what's the problem anyway with us warming up a little bit? Aren't we the coldest we've been for a very long time?
Well, no, that's not quite true. I mean,
tell me.
A couple of summers ago, we had the warmest summer on record, and
every year the king was
going around saying, "Well, there you are, I told you so. It's all terrible. It's global warming." Of course, everybody was loving the sunshine. It's the same this year. Of course, the Met Office, which makes up all its figures, is saying that yet again this summer was the warmest summer ever. Actually, it was nothing like as warm as 1976. But the way they do their measurements now, they no longer use real temperature stations. They do a thing called kriging, where they interpolate imaginary figures and they get completely arbitrary numbers. The Met Office can no longer be relied upon.
Well, my favourite one, Lord Monckton, is that they got one of the temperature readings that they got was after a jet had taken off, an RAF jet had taken off from an RAF base in the middle of the runway, and they were surprised that was hot. Yes. Anyway, I know that you and Father Calvin will you're both Roman Catholic. So that's good. But you have strong opinions with regards to religion and especially to Christianity. And I would like to join my friend, Father Calvin Robinson, down the line from the United States of America, where that you are free. You are free and we are not. Is that correct, Father Calvin?
Hello. Good to see you. It's been a while. Yes, I am free. Land of the free. And
Land of the free.
Home of the brave.
How are you?
I cannot complain. I'm hoping some of it's infectious. We could do with some bravery and some freedom back home in the United Kingdom.
Don't worry, I'm doing it. It's all happening. It's all happening here. Lord Monckton and I, we're at the forefront of the free and the brave. You don't look very ecclesiastical, Father Calvin. What's going on? In fact, you look quite unecclesiastical.
I'm on my vacation in Austin, Texas this week.
What is it? My priest calls it mufti. He says, I'm going mufti.
Yes, in my muftis.
Yeah,
yes.
Mufti.
Well, a wise old priest who baptized me, the late Monsignor Alfred Gilby, even when he was on holiday, he would always be in full fig. And he also
it's a bit hot though.
He also yes, but he didn't mind that. He also had a wonderful shovel hat. I bet you haven't got a shovel hat, have you?
Not on me, no.
Well,
that's a good line.
You ought to get a shovel hat because it will lend you an air of admittedly spurious distinction, but it would be worth trying.
So, Father Calvin, you look like you're at Disneyland, but I'm going to be asking you some questions. What is going on with the Church of England being all moralistic and making comments about deporting illegal immigrants, the Rwanda plan, framing it as immoral and shaming Britain? I mean, I know a lot of people say that the church and the state should be separate. I mean, you and I love history, so we know that actually, bishops, priests have all throughout history been very political. So this is in fact nothing new. But do you think that the Church of England should be getting involved in government policy like this?
Well, a lot to break down there. Yes, our faith is political because it's about how to live our lives in a good and ordered fashion. And so that means if the politics is governing our country, we want the politics to be governed with a Christian moral compass. So we should have politics and faith intermixed. And people who say they want separation of church and state, I think they don't know what that means, because we don't want the state impeding on the church, of course not. But we do want the church to be there in the state. We want the church to say, actually, hold up a minute, you can't be killing your babies.
To be our
that's
moral
wrong. That's murder of the vulnerable.
to guide us.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is the Church of England's bishops are all liberal, all but one are liberal. And so, yes, they sit in the House of Lords, but they're not there as a moral compass. They're there as lefties, like the rest of the lefties in the House of Lords.
Can I challenge the word
Commons.
liberal? They're not liberal, they are illiberal.
You can challenge it. No, you can challenge it, but I would say you're wrong. Because the problem with liberalism is that by its very foundation, it's searching for freedoms away from any kind of authority. Whereas the Christian faith, true freedom, is submission to God. It's obedience to God. So liberalism is like the serpent in the ear in the Garden of Eden saying, you can do what you like. You can become a god of yourself. That's the problem with liberalism, which is why it never works, whether it's classical liberalism, libertarianism, or modern day neoliberalism. It's all error. It's all heresy, unfortunately.
So do you feel that that it's a slippery slope, that you know, once Eve had been deceived, us girls being a bit gullible sometimes, that suddenly, you know, that there's no way back. What you're saying is you have to keep very strong and focused on what counts and not deviate.
It's funny, I'm not endorsing this, but I happen to be reading this, this is exactly on what you're just talking about. We used to have an idea of ideal feminism, which was, it's not mine. It's Carrie Baressa's book. I've just started reading it on my holiday. But it's saying how we used to know what it meant to be a woman. Women would model or copy what Eve set out. Sorry, not Eve, Mary. But now
I'm Eve.
This is the problem. There's too many people follow Eve. But feminism has disrupted that and fought against the patriarchy and fought against Mary. And now we're looking for a new form of feminism, which is actually just women becoming men. But back round to your question.
No, I'm only joking. I absolutely adore Our Lady. You know I do. But yeah. So
can I chip in just very quickly?
Go on, Love Monckton, chip in.
It seems to me that the problem with the Church of England, bless its little cotton socks, is that the only doctrine...
I'm High Church of England.
The only doctrine is the doctrine that there is no doctrine. And the moment you say, well, you can believe what you like and it doesn't really matter, and there is no body of faith, there is no deposit of faith, there is no fides to follow, and therefore you can believe what you like, that's when this illiberalism that passes itself off as liberalism comes in its authoritarian, totalitarian way and says, well, if somebody turns up and they arrive with a passport into the Schengen area, then they get onto one of these rubber boats and then they throw their passports overboard, because once you are picked up by the British Coast Guard, you're rescued at sea, you don't need a passport for that. So then we don't know where they've come from, which means it's hard to send them back where they've come from.
And also we don't know what they've done.
And we don't know what they've done. They could be criminals. In fact, a lot of countries now, particularly some of the older ones down in southeastern Europe, what they're doing is all their most dangerous criminals that they would otherwise have to incarcerate expensively.
They just send them to us.
They send them to us, and they can then carry on with their crime wave in our country. And so the bishops do not realize that if you are going to be properly charitable, you have to be charitable not only to those who are seeking to game the system and to arrive at our shores illegally. We have laws and they are breaking those laws. But also you have to bear in mind the indigenous population of this country, which has rights as well.
Well,
I am going to cut in. I love you very much, but I am going to cut in. Right.
I would argue that those bishops know very well what they're doing. It's not that they're misinformed. They've been captured, and this is part of an agenda which they are at the front line for the woke deep state. That's what I think. What do you think?
My modest proposal is this, that we should abolish the Church of England, give back the churches to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church
Thank you very
should
much.
then
Thank
become the
you,
religion.
Father Calvin.
My lord, you are right. The problem is that the Church of England has fallen into the trap of suicidal empathy, right? So they want to be compassionate, and so they want to help these see as refugees.
It's because
But
there's
you
too
and
many
I,
women.
you and Lois, yeah, too many women of both sexes, unfortunately. But we all know that many of these people coming over to our country illegally, so the first thing they do when they enter is break the law. But secondly, we know that they are dumping their papers, so we don't know their history, we don't know where they're from. And so the first duty to anyone is to one's family, and then it is to one's neighbour, and then it is to the foreigner. And so what the Church of England is getting confused is to love thy neighbour means to love your fellow neighbour, literally the people you live alongside, fellow Brits. We should be protecting each other, yes, and then we can help stretch an arm out to these foreign countries that are going through problems and help them help themselves, rather than taking all their fighting age men into our country. It doesn't help them, it doesn't help us. We know that young British girls are being raped by these Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, and we know that no one's doing anything about it.
But can I just make a very strong point that obviously girls are raped by people from all different races, but yeah, okay.
Well, you can make that point, but it's disproportionate because 5% of the British population is Pakistani Muslim, and they account for 65% of the child sexual exploitation. So predominantly it does happen within a certain demographic. And so my response would be, let's stop taking on that demographic.
Okay, but all right, what I would say to that is, okay, that there are certain statistics, and you're probably right, but the main thing is having people coming in on boats. We don't know who they are, and they are much more likely, these people coming in on the boats, to be committing crimes. Is it something that Somali men are 25 times more likely to commit sexual offences against women?
I mean, there's no doubt that such figures as they're producing are not happy figures.
No.
And there's no doubt that the Reform Party, which has really led on this issue and still does lead on this issue. Nigel identified this some years ago.
And actually,
the sheer scale of it.
Let me finish
the sentence here.
Is a big person against this.
Yeah, let me finish the sentence here. They have identified this as a problem which is now widely causing concern among the indigenous population. And all I would say is to our lordships, the bishops, is you have a duty, just as Father has rightly said, to the population who are already here, who are legitimately here, who are the citizens of this country. Your first duty is to them. And if you continue to turn your backs on them, you will continue to empty the Anglican churches, and that will be the end of you. So come back into line and start realizing that you cannot pick and choose who to love. The obligation that the Lord of life imposed upon us is in Greek agapesis, in Latin diliges, in English thou shalt love. And you have to love everyone without fear or favour. You may not say, because it is fashionable with the left-wing causes to which you subscribe,
they're all atheists anyway,
that you're only going to love the immigrants. You also have to love those who are legitimately already here.
No, I agree.
And if you forget that, then you no longer have any purpose or right to be a bishop, and you must, the whole lot of you, just resign. Just, in God's name, go.
Right, I've got two questions for you, Father Calvin. So, right, what do you think about, right, there's two things, good news and bad news. So, apparently, young people are filling up churches again in the UK and in the Roman Catholic faith in particular. But my church is rammed on a Sunday. It's absolutely fantastic. And in particular with young men. Is this like a Trumpian type vibe, but in the UK? What's that about, do you think?
The pendulum is swinging back. So the boomers destroyed the faith by making it relevant and modern, bringing guitars and projector screens.
You don't want a guitar in a church, do you?
Warm fuzzies. Did you come across the warm fuzzies?
Warm fuzzies, yeah. Winsomeness and all that moist rubbish. Whereas Gen Z are looking and saying, we want tradition. We want sacred tradition. We want something that's bigger than ourselves, something that's otherworldly, something that's supernatural. And that's what the ancient faith delivers. And so high church, Anglican churches, as well as Roman Catholic churches are seeing
Oh, I'm
that
glad you mentioned
return
my
to
church.
something that's, of course, but that's the return to something that's uniting us all throughout
Real.
history. We pray along with our brothers and sisters in Christ now, but all of those that have gone before us too. And it's not superficial. It's not trying to be relevant because it's in the world but not of the world. And it's a great blessing that young men are returning. I hope that lots more young men can get married and raise families and teach them the faith too, because at the
Yeah,
moment the sexes
me
seem
too.
to be divided, which is a problem. But we do need to see a return to tradition.
That I completely agree with you. And one final point, which I'd like to ask you about, and then go to Lord Monckton. Is it a concern to you the secularism of the left? I mean, we've got a prime minister now who is the first prime minister that we've ever had that says that he's an atheist. It is worrying, isn't it? You know, and when you have these bills being voted through, like the abortion bill, making it decriminalising abortion to birth, when you've got the assisted suicide bill, it does make this secularism even more worrying. Would you not agree?
It's evil, it's demonic. The fact that we are pushing through decriminalisation of abortion up to and during birth just shows how far we've
During
fallen.
birth?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, since the decriminalisation of abortion and the legalisation of abortion in the West, women have killed more people through abortion than men have killed in every single war and famine combined.
And you can
That's
get
how
those tablets
monstrous
by post
we're
now,
living
and you
through a
can lie.
genocide. 100%. And so, yes, it's monstrous. Up until just about 100 years ago, you had to be a member of the Church of England to stand for office in England, which made sense to me because we knew that you were part of England, but also you had the same moral compass as everyone else. You were
Yeah,
Christian.
that's why
They
Benjamin
got rid of that.
Disraeli converted to
Had to
Christianity. That's
convert,
right. Yeah.
absolutely. They got rid of that. We ended up with a heathen prime minister in Rishi Sunak. We've ended up with an atheist prime minister in Sir Keir Starmer, which is even worse, probably.
Much worse.
And when the country is facing an immigration crisis and a two-tier policing crisis, and then what do? They put a Mohammedan into the Home Office who is responsible for immigration and policing. They put the enemy right there as a minister.
It's her particular interpretation and her views rather than her faith in itself. Yeah, okay.
I will say one thing, if I may, on behalf of Rishi Sunak. He's not a heathen. He's a Hindu. Yes. And so if I were to say, if
Hindus
you
are
happen to be
technically
watching,
heathen, absolutely.
watching, I should say.
Watching?
Yes, I shall try to speak English for the rest of this programme.
I know.
If you happen to be watching, then if I were to
English
say
would
to you
be
something in
correct
Sanskrit, I
word,
might
but-
say, for instance, Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara.
He just wanted to show off. That's the only reason that you said that.
Which is something which I think all religions could agree on. It says this, it says, speak the truth and serve the right. And that is something that Rishi believes in. He is a believer. He's not a heathen. It's a great sadness that so many on the far left, the communist left, take the Marxian view of religion that it is merely the opium of the people. You can use it, as Mr. Putin does, to put them to sleep and anesthetize them. But I so agree with you on the question of particularly killing little babies. And the thing that I find really monstrous is that the United Kingdom is a signatory to a number of international treaties against both torture and also what is known as cruel and inhuman punishment. And if you kill a baby, particularly close to birth, when that baby's senses are fully developed, and you do not even give that baby its own anaesthetic. Before you put those forceps in, you crush its skull and you pull it out piecemeal, a leg here, an arm there, and it is fully conscious while this is going on.
No, absolutely.
And I describe it in that detail, however distressing this may be to those who are listening, because that is what we are doing to the little children of our own country.
No, they are demonic.
At the very least, I do hope that the communists who are trying to kill as many of our own indigenous populations as they can will realize that eventually I am hoping that we can find one or two Catholic bishops with sufficient spine and backbone to take the government to court for the cruel and inhuman punishment that they are subjecting the little babies to. And there is a starting point. to start getting this
I've
back to
got
where
to
it
move
should
on,
be.
Lord Monckton. I agree with every word you said. Final word, 5 seconds, Father Calvin.
Absolutely. Mass immigration is a problem, but actually the only reason we're seeing mass immigration of both legal and illegal forms is because we're killing off ourselves. We're killing our own offspring. If we stopped aborting people, the government was stopping people. Let's stop killing babies.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
please come back. You're wonderful. Are you ever going to come back to London, or is that it? Are you a political prisoner now? Are you a political,
If they
refugee?
won't arrest me on arrival, perhaps.
Okay. Well, once they've arrested you and then they let you go, can you come straight to the studio and I can have the exclusive? Mwah. Thank you so much,
God bless you.
Father. God bless.
Bye,
Bless
both.
you, Father. Lovely to talk.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Isn't he lovely?
He is one of my favourite saints. I collect saints. There are so many more of them than folk realise. And this is one of the great
What
delights.
saint would I be?
You're,
I love the fact that you had to take a breath.
I shall put you on hold for the moment. No.
Actually, it's always the ones that you don't expect. That do
Exactly,
good
of
work.
course, I'm married to both an angel and a saint. I committed
she's
bigamy
lovely.
when I married my lovely wife Juliet. She is both an angel and a saint, and
And
I'm very lucky.
ridiculously attractive as well. Like
there is
almost to the point that you don't want to be in the same postcode as her.
And she also has stood by me with striking devotion and loyalty, and I'm surrounded by love every minute of every day. And to those of you who have never committed matrimony, all I can say is this: there is no happier state if you are lucky enough to find someone as magnificently, devotedly loving as my dear, lovely wife, Juliet.
Well, maybe
God
I'll
bless
get
her.
married again one day when I've got all of this out of my system. You are very lucky, and she is very lovely. But this isn't very lovely, what I'm about to tell you. Ineos, which is one of the UK's biggest companies and biggest employers and payers of tax and all of that jazz, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has announced that they're going. That Ineos is going. They can't make any money out of the North Sea because of all the stupid taxes. They can't. The net zero policies, all of it. It's a huge blow to the UK economy and the energy sector. What kind of country are we when we're chasing out brilliant people like Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos? What's going on?
What's going on is this. If you have the Communist Party in government, and that's what we've got. Oh, they call themselves socialists, but then all the communists from Marx onwards call themselves socialists.
Right.
When you have a Communist Party in government, its main mission is to destroy the British economy. They are not here to make the British economy work. If you look at any of the economic policies they are pursuing, all of them are calculated to destroy the British economy. And nothing is more destructive of the British economy than to pursue mad nut zero policies which make our electricity 6 times more expensive than it is in India and Pakistan and China and Russia, and indeed about 6 times more expensive than the average world price of electricity.
Why?
And 8
But
times more
why?
expensive than in the better
Why are
American
they doing
states.
it? Why England? Why is the United Kingdom at the forefront of this absolute, crap?
Well, I can tell you exactly why. It is because the unspeakable BBC, which should, in my opinion, be abolished outright, without any further ado, is allowed by the Office for Communism, Ofcom, which is supposed to be the regulator, making sure that both sides of a story get put. Ofcom has issued a statement to the effect that the global warming scam is settled science and that therefore there is no obligation upon any broadcaster to give the sceptical side of the argument.
Actually,
Now, what is interesting
and that was
about
under
that
Blair, wasn't it? That was under Blair.
is that the law says, and this is a very ancient law, it's actually part of the natural law, says that the moment a body with a judicial or quasi-judicial function, such as the Office for Communism, decides that it has made a particular point of view its own, then it may no longer issue any judgments on any question based on that point of view. So it no longer has the right to say that you can only give one side of the story, but that's what it does. And the BBC and ITV, Channel 4 and Sky TV are taking full advantage of that. And the reason why we've therefore gone so far down the road of the utter destruction of our economy is that the broadcasters have been allowed by the regulator only to give one side of the story, and they have taken full communistic advantage of that.
They have done.
That's why we've gone there. And so what are we going to do about it? Well, the great thing is the Reform Party is going to junk the entire net zero policy from top to bottom.
Do you know why?
Well, because it can't be afforded, among other things.
No, but do you know why? Come on, no, but do you know why?
Why what?
Why they're abolishing net zero and why that's their policy.
Go on.
Me.
Well,
you know me, Lord Monckton. I'd never ever blow my own trumpet.
we have a phrase for that. Credit where credit isn't due. As a matter of fact, I happen to know which particular emeritus professor from Oxford University has been for some months advising Reform on its policies on this. And he is a wonderful man. I shall not name him because otherwise there'll be people throwing bricks through his window.
Oh, here we are.
He is a wonderful man. Again, he's one of my saints. And he has done a lot of thinking and research into this. He has been briefing Reform in detail on the ins and outs of climate policy and economics. And Reform has now fully understood how completely unnecessary and economically pointless and based on scientific gibberish the climate science nonsense is.
You're absolutely right.
And so it has rejected it. Now, there's a very interesting strategic consideration here which we need to take into account, which is that the outgoing Chief of the General Staff, Chief of Defence Staff as we call him, just a few months ago, said that because the cradle of the Industrial Revolution, namely Britain, can no longer make virgin steel because we can't use coking coal because global warming, we could now only fight one small war for only 1 week. After that, we would run out of materiel because you need tanks and armoured personnel carriers and shells and aircraft.
No wonder Putin's flying drones over Poland. He's not scared at all.
And we can no longer hit back for more than a week. And only then if it's
and
a
everyone
small war.
knows that now.
And everyone now knows it. And the Chief of the Defence Staff was quite right to say this in the hope that it would wake up these numpties in the Communist Party to change their policy and at least allow virgin steel to be made. But no, at the moment, when you have people like Miliband, who is both as thick as two short planks and as malicious towards the future of this country as he is, as they all are, unfortunately, in the Communist Party, or the Labour Party, as they call themselves so coyly, then this is a programme of deliberate destruction. There is no faster way to destroy an economy than to say, right, no, Ineos, we're not going to allow you to develop the enormous new oil fields that we've found in the North Sea, or the even bigger oil field that has been found by Russia in around the Falklands, where there's 511 billion barrels of oil just waiting to be
That should keep us going for how long would that keep us going?
That would keep us going for about 50 years in Britain. I mean, it's really a very significant find.
That's extraordinary.
And at the moment, the Russians are busy exploiting it because they don't care about global warming. And I can tell you why they don't care about global warming, because I was invited by the Russian Academy of Sciences back in 2017 to go to Moscow to speak at a conference there. And then, as a result of my speech, the Russian Academy invited me to attend a high-level scientific briefing led by the deputy head of the Russian Academy of Sciences, academician Semenyov. And he raised the question, why is it that we cannot get a narrower interval or range of global warming predictions than 2 to 5 Celsius degrees over the coming century? So the only person who was able to answer that question was me. I said the whole thing is based on a strikingly elementary error of physics. They forgot the sun was shining. He was so fascinated.
Do you not think you're being generous by saying it was an error? I don't think it was an error.
Oh, it was an error, yeah.
It was an error.
It was a crass error, but then, once they were told of the error, because my team sort of found it out, they then weren't willing to admit that it was an error because the embarrassment factor, of course, is not, to leave out the fact that the sun is shining from a vital point in your country.
You don't think it's an agenda?
No, because I've read the original paper in which the error was published. It was, in fact, a communist communist scientist who first published the error, many times arrested for communist agitation. And he was at NASA, and it was in 1984, appropriately enough, that this paper was published. And all his fellow communist scientists throughout academia were eagerly copying this error because they borrowed from another branch of science without understanding a word of what they borrowed. And basically, they screwed up. It really was originally an error, but now they know that it was an error because we've told them, and they're desperate to suppress it. But here is what the Russians did. They were very different. What they did was this. The academician Semyonov came straight up to me after this meeting where, there are people from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and eminent climate scientists from all around the world, and little old me. And he came straight up to me at the end of the meeting. He said, "Come with me. I want you to brief the IPCC's representative," who didn't understand a word of what I was saying, so he got rid of him. He said, "There is somebody
That's not that
here."
reassuring, is it? That he doesn't understand.
Of course, I mean, they're all communists too, but he did say, "I want you to brief Russia's chief... I want you to brief Russia's chief climate modeler." So this little gnome-like figure appeared. He was one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. It took him exactly 20 seconds to understand quite a complicated point of physics that I put in front of him. And he went like this, "Боже мой," he said, "Oh my God."
Really?
Yeah. He said, he turned to Semyonov, he said, "I'm going to have to go at once." And so Semyonov said, "Well, what's the hurry?" He said, "This is an enormous mistake. I must go and correct our model immediately." And the most eminent climate scientist in the world got in touch with me just a few months ago, Professor Richard Lindzen, and he sent me a list of the predictions of all the different major climate models. And the only one that now produces accurate predictions of global warming, it therefore produces less predictions of global warming than any other computer model around the world, is the Russian model, because they have corrected for this error.
Because you corrected it.
No, because the modeler corrected it, because he was sufficiently well-versed in science to understand
what you were
quite
saying.
An abstruse point of classical mathematics combined with number theory, combined with engineering, physics. I mean, it's not easy stuff, this. It's rocket science, literally.
It is literal rocket science.
You see, if you think of a rocket and it takes off, why doesn't it fall over?
I don't know.
Well, the reason is that as it takes off, if it starts to lean even a little bit, then you'll see a little puff of jet coming out from one side of it that it's about to fall onto, and it pushes it back straight again, because there is a feedback and it keeps it upright all the time. So it is rocket science. It is very difficult science.
I just had some breaking news. I don't know if the gallery's aware, but it's actually loud in the studio when they're talking to me. It's not coming through the earpiece. Okay, so got some horrific news. Charlie Kirk has just been shot in the neck. So we don't know what condition, how he is. We don't know anything. But if any more information that I get before the end of the broadcast in about 14 minutes, we will communicate that to you. So the right-wing commentator, very famous American, Charlie Kirk, has been shot in the neck.
Well, let us pray for him. I had the honour of meeting him a couple of years ago when he came over to this country. He's amazing. Most impressive man. And
he's a religious man.
And he's a man of great Christian faith, as well as great common sense. He believes in the sort of Thatcherite, free market, low tax, Reaganite economics. And he goes onto these communist campuses in the universities.
He does, he's quite brilliant.
Right across the United States. And sits there
and the UK
with a microphone to which the students and their professors can come, and all these Marxists come up and they ask him questions or make rude statements about
and he deals with it so brilliantly, doesn't he?
And he is one of the greatest and doughtiest fighters for truth that we've had in a long time, and the fact that somebody has now shot him just shows how, this is a very important point, how desperate the communist
they
left
are desperate.
now becoming. You see, why?
It makes me worried about Trump and Nigel Farage.
Well, if they tried to shoot Trump, they will try to shoot Nigel.
No,
and,
then I don't. No.
Enormous protective measures have had to be taken to try to make sure that does not succeed. But the fact is, the left now know, and they know with bitterness in their hearts, that they have lost every single one of the arguments they advanced. They've lost
and now
on the
just
climate
violence.
question.
Violence.
They've lost on everything. And as a result, that's why they won't debate, and that's why they are going after and shutting down free speech. And that's why some leftist shot poor Charlie Kirk.
Oh, I hope he's
okay. So let us pray for him.
I urge all of our viewers to pray for Charlie Kirk, because a wonderful man, a beautiful big brain like that must not be extinguished too early.
And a man of enormous courage, because to go onto these nests of communism, which are the university campuses, the same here as it is in the United States. You know, the communists have completely captured our education system, down even to the primary school system in this country. And he goes in there and faces them down and simply out-argues them time and time and time again. So if you want to see him on YouTube, just put in Charlie Kirk into the YouTube thing, and you'll see literally thousands of short clips where he allows some frightful communist student or even professor to come up and talk gibberish, and then he answers them politely, clearly, authoritatively.
Have you seen him arguing about Israel? He's very good. He's very good.
He's been very good on that. He's been very good on so many of these hot button issues.
I just feel very, very upset. I mean, we've got one more segment, and we will talk about it, but just to tell our viewers, Charlie Kirk has been shot in the neck. We don't know anything about his condition, but any more information that we get before the end of the broadcast, we will make sure that you know straight away. Let's very briefly, because I'm not really in the mood now, I'll be honest, and I'm frightened about anything happening to Nigel Farage, because I feel that if anything did happen to him, not just personally, but for our country, he's our only hope, isn't he? I mean, you know, I'm sorry to sound all Star Warsy about it, but he is.
I think let us be perhaps more generous to him than that. I think that even if that were to happen to him, and of course we pray that the security people will make sure that it doesn't.
Well, he's got 8 with him all the time.
But if we say this, if he were to be shot or otherwise compromised, then he will become a martyr for the cause of freedom. And so if you are
much rather have him alive than a martyr.
And you think that this is going to help the cause of communism, no, it isn't. It would be the most disastrously stupid thing that you could do. So if you're thinking of it, think again. Nothing would do communism in this country more terminal harm than if you tried to bring harm to Nigel Farage. So back off.
Yeah, back off, communists. Let's move on to a nice topic, and we're going to see some footage as well. Can we actually show some of the speeches with sound? Lord Monckton and I did a panel together, didn't we? We did that, the Heartland Institute UK and Europe panel at the Reform Conference, sponsored by Quews TV, and you compared, and you were, although you were sort of a panelist as well, weren't you? Because you were answering questions and things like that. It wasn't just a comparing role.
Well, I had to keep pretty much stum, because when you have somebody like Lois there, you don't really get a word in edgeways.
Oh anyway, my goodness! Pot kettle black! Oh my goodness! Wow. The thing is, though, when it's very, very difficult to have any issue with someone, even if they do speak quite a lot, when they're so informed and as lovely and charming and intelligent as your good self. But
How about that for
there
flattery?
You go.
You'll get your usual fiver afterwards. But of course, the same applies to you, Lois. You have made yourself the master of this subject, and you have gained a level of publicity for the truth, which young folk will listen to and heed. You see, you look at me and you see what the statisticians call a segment of the population broken down by age and sex. I don't necessarily resonate with young folk because I'm not a young guy anymore.
Well, I love the fact that you think that I'm young. That's brilliant. Well, that's why I date old men.
Compared with me, I am kind of prehistory now. But I mean, I think it was a very, very interesting meeting because so many people came.
Yeah, well, it was well over 400.
And
it was packed.
And I think it came close to 500. And the great thing was, when I asked them at the beginning, okay, how many of you believe the official climate narrative? There were only one or two, and I think one of them was a journalist from The Guardian or somewhere frightful. And so...
the Graniad.
Yes, that's right.
The Graniad.
Their mispronts are still
famous.
That's
right,
but,
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, there was near unanimity among the audience, and increasingly, and you said this at the beginning of the show, and you were quite right to do so, people have rumbled this scam. They realise
Emperor's New Clothes.
that, yes, the weather is a little bit warmer than it was 150 years ago.
And?
Of course, people like me can actually remember that far back, but most folk can't. But even so, they realise it might be a little bit warmer, but in Britain, which is a cold island, this isn't exactly a problem. I mean, you're too young to remember, but back in Roman times, I remember it
That's the worst compliment I've ever been given.
I remember it well. In Roman times, we were growing wine, grapes, in the Great Glen in Scotland.
That's right.
You can't do that today because it's too bloody cold.
And in Manchester, they were growing grapes for wine in Manchester. I mean, that says something, doesn't it?
The Great Glen, just to get your geography right, is even further north.
No, I'm aware of that, but but Manchester.
Well, you are now.
I was aware of that, but thank you very much. And also, they had hippopotami in the Thames, didn't they? That we've had. It's been so warm in the past that we've had hippopotami.
Yeah, I think you have to go further back from Roman times to achieve that.
No, much further back.
Yes.
But the point I'm making is things constantly change.
Well, this is the thing, and we've seen it all before. If you go back in history, first of all, there was a thing called the medieval warm period.
That's right.
I remember it well. Again, you're too young. And then all those medieval SUVs that they were driving around in.
I know, and all those private jets.
All that caused a huge
they were so irresponsible, weren't they?
Then you go back to the Roman warm period. Then you go back to the Egyptian Old Kingdom warm period. Of course, there's also the Minoan warm period, which came just after the Egyptian warm period. Go back before the Egyptian warm period, you come to a wonderful thing called the Holocene climate optimum. Bet you haven't run into that on a dark night. And that was when, for a period of nearly 10,000 years, with a brief period of a couple of thousand years in the middle, the temperatures were warmer than they are today for nearly 10,000 years. And, this is putting it into perspective. And the way that the climate communists have pursued this is to make sure that nobody gets to know any of the history that I've just outlined.
In fact, it was only when I started doing Cartoon 6 on Talk TV and GB News that people had heard the phrases, the medieval warm period, the Roman war, that people had not heard those phrases. But isn't it right,
Going back in time, medieval, Roman, Minoan, Egyptian Old Kingdom, Holocene climate optimum. And that's just all in the last 10,000 years.
And isn't it right to say that it is during the periods of warm periods in our great history, Ireland's history, that there is the greatest human advances and prosperity.
And you can see this physically in the great cathedrals of England and Europe, because
through the medieval
all of them
period,
were built in the Middle Ages warm period, and then suddenly there were no more built for hundreds of years. Why? Because we went into a thing called the Little Ice Age, when the Thames used to freeze over.
They used to have fairs on the Thames.
It was great fun, those fairs on the Thames, the ice fairs as they were called. We had a lovely time. And they did the same in Holland, where they could skate on the various canals, which you can't do today because it's too warm. And I remember when I actually lived physically on the Thames in a barge when I first moved south from Yorkshire. Couldn't afford a house, I was too poor.
Right, number one, Yorkshire. Your accent doesn't sound in any way Yorkshireman-like.
Well, if they wants me to lapse into Yorkshire,
you were lucky, and you lived on a boat on the Thames.
I lived on a stinky old Thames barge, leaky old thing. I was too poor to do anything else for a couple of years, and even then, I remember ice floes coming down the Thames because it was so cold in the winters. So it's not as though, this warming of the countryside is a bad thing. It's a very good thing. We've just had a nice, warm, perhaps rather too dry summer for the farmers to like it. I know Jeremy Clarkson's been complaining about it, poor chap. But the fact is, for the rest of us, it's been very nice. I've been doing my training up on the Cotswold
Well, it's not good. It's not good for me.
In beautiful sunshine.
I don't like it. I don't like it. And all Essex girls don't like it because our eyelash glue melts. So our eyelashes fall off. Our clothes feel too tight. You can't keep the curl in your hair, and you can only wear stilettos for a very brief period.
I'll give you a couple of secrets. What I do in hot weather is to wear a really heavy leather biker jacket that I've had now for 30 or 40 years. And
how do you find your eyelash glue situation?
Well, the great thing is that being a lad, I kind of don't use it all that often.
No.
So it isn't really a problem.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you so much. You've been a star. You're always a star. I remember when you came on the show that I used to do on Talk TV with a co-host. That was The Woke That Was. And you, I think you shocked everybody on the show and got some of our biggest viewing figures ever. So I'm sure that'll be the case this week as well. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to Lord Monckton and to Father Calvin Robinson, and to say join us next week and thoughts and prayers. And I'm not saying that in a disingenuous way at all. Thoughts and prayers and more prayers and more prayers for Charlie Kirk, the American commentator and conservative writer who has been shot in the neck whilst we've been on air. Thank you very much, guys. And I will see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. for another bird-like version of Lois Perry Show, A Bird's Eye View. Thank you.